Ready?
You should bite her.
Yeah. It's like it's a nibble more than anything. I think I get that habit from my mom. My mom used to do it. I don't know if she used to bite her ears, but she would get like ansias. You know, ansias is? It's like you ever see something and you just want to like squeeze it or hug it? It's like that feeling you have.
Mm-hmm.
Spanish, they probably ansias.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's a proper or slang. Probably the more I want to say Latinos. I guess Latinos, like I speak with, like saying some terms mean different things.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It doesn't relate to anxiety.
No, no. I'm glad you brought anxiety up.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast earlier, and I think it's important that people are aware because I feel that a lot of kids nowadays, um, they are not. I don't want to say all of them. I do feel that. So a certain level of anxiety is good. You know what I mean? It's like I don't say good. I should just say yeah, like a normal, yeah. And the way I heard, you know, who Rainn Wilson is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard him on a podcast, and he was talking about it's like the canary in the coal mine, like, but it's just letting you know something. But then there's different levels of anxiety, and then there's like the ultimate level, which is a panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I'm sure you're familiar with those, but those can be very unsettling and almost feel like you're gonna die, can't breathe. But I've heard a lot of kids or young people or just in general just speak of it and not like, oh, my anxiety gets too crazy. But they're talking about just the normal amount of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, so it's like, it's addressed with the word anxiety, but the anxiety is like used to describe in this extreme version, but it's really not. I guess it's important to have an understanding of where your anxiety truly is as opposed to just saying it. Have you heard anybody kind of like talk about it and then they kind of like almost compete with each other?
Maybe, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Or use it kind of, yeah, like frivolously, like, oh, I'm just saying, like, anxious or something. But then, I don't know, if you like, if you're really like tuned into your anxiety, like, are some people just using that word?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know, in terms of competing, like, or it being like, oh, mine is worse.
Yeah, and I've heard that where, like, they're just having a conversation amongst themselves, and it's just like, oh, you don't know, like, mine is like this, and oh, mine is like that, and there's a competition, and I see it on social media also. It's just, and it's not just with anxiety; it's like depression and all these different things, and there's like depression, like where it's like a normal amount. And granted, I'm not a clinical psychologist or anything, but I feel like I've kind of been with my own experiences and my own understanding and through different programs that I can understand. Like, there's different levels to that too, right? It's like you lose something you love. You know, there's a slight depression in there. Some people can't come out of it, and then it becomes like clinical depression.
Yeah.
But it's understanding these different levels and not just accepting it as like somebody else's or like like you're watching like a movie and somebody's like just out, like zonked out and like just can't do anything, can get out of bed. But because I feel like what we say becomes what we are.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you like step into that identity versus like giving yourself a chance to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you identify with it and then it becomes part of you, and then like you don't allow anybody else to challenge you out of it.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Atomic Habits talks about that book about like changing your habits, and like you have to completely like change your own like identity in your own mind before you can start to change those like behaviors for good.
Yeah.
Like, and so yeah, telling yourself all the time, like, oh, just I'm anxious all the time. Like, you're not giving yourself a chance to even practice, I guess, pulling yourself out of that pattern.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, you could require like more help, or like it could just be the way your brain is wired, but if you like maybe start to change that story and tell yourself like I get big feelings, but I can breathe through them or something like that. Yeah, like
Yeah, and I think you said it earlier. It's like having the awareness of where your body is at, your physiological and then mental state. They play hand in hand. Because if you just accept something as like absolute, then you're never gonna get out of it. I remember when like I was diagnosed with the things they were trying to diagnose me with. I was just like, for some reason, I was like, I didn't want to accept it, which was in a good way, I think, because it was just like, I hear what you're saying, and I'm gonna take these pills, but it's just temporary because I don't know, for some reason I didn't want to accept the fact, like, because they were like, you're gonna probably have to do like the rest of your life. And I'm like, no. I don't
be another way.
yeah, there. I was just like, maybe you could say that was denial because there was a stage of that when I finally accepted it. But at the same time, it was like accepted it with a caveat, like, you know, this is temporary. You know, these pills are temporary. This thing is temporary. That's because if I was accepted like a doctor, because we give a lot of power to our physicians and doctors, like, you know, like I did too. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Please fix me, and you know, I'll do whatever you tell me to. And if you never question them or never understand you have the power to change or anything like that, like the power's within you, then you're just gonna stay stuck there, and just like taking everything every day, all the time. I'm not saying people
don't need it.
There's, I guess, certain cases where they're acute, you know, where they have some type of, where they're a danger to themselves or others, but I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, that is, it's about like coming back and like listening what's going on in your own system versus just taking somebody's word for it. If you're aiming to get to an alternative solution.
Yeah, and that I think that's huge right there, because I think there's some people that do not want to get better because of and it's kind of, I don't want to say sad, but it kind of is kind of sad because maybe they feel like they get a certain amount of attention from people that they weren't getting before. So it kind of, you know, in some way kind of makes them still feel seen or what have you, or like a community within it. Like, hey, you have anxiety, oh, so do I, you know. And then there's this, like, you know, like they understand me, they understand what I'm saying. But I think that's good to a certain extent, because at some point you need to start challenging, like, because would you want to stay ridden with like anxiety and depression?
I don't think so. I would not want that.
You know what
I was trying to think of like where I could relate to that, and like where I'm maybe holding myself back in certain ways, and like it can serve as like an excuse.
It does, and it can.
Protection, like
yeah, because it gets you out of a lot of stuff. I imagine in school, like nowadays, like, hey, my anxiety, whatever, and it's just like a general term, but it can get you out of a lot of things. Like, I don't want to take this test, or and it becomes it becomes a crutch.
Yeah, crutch.
You know what I mean? And it gets you out of a lot of things. Maybe even work. I need a sick or whatever day, mental health day, but either way. So how do you? Oh, thanks for joining us. We just kind of got into it. Yeah, we have Teresa Hughes here. She's been on the podcast before. Welcome back. Yeah, we just had breakfast a while ago. It's first thing in the morning. They're doing this podcast. You know, we got a lot of stuff to do today, but yeah, you know, welcome to the new room. You're the first guest in this new. I guess it's your second time. You were here this past weekend hanging out. Yeah. But yeah, trying to make it a little bit more friendly, comfortable space. Chill stuff. But so going back to like what we were initially talking about, like how do you, like, of course you mountain bike. Would you say that's like your primary outlet
of like activities right now? Yes. Yeah, it's been primary kind of since 2020, and then racing really ramped that up, and then being in the van ramped that up, and yeah, it's kind of my primary thing still.
Yeah. I don't know, there's nothing wrong with it.
Mhm.
Like, I know we just running, you roll with the Angel Fire with 2DTP. Yeah, it was a good time. Yeah. Um, I think that was the first time that I've chased you or been behind you. So I was like, hey, she's pretty quick, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, definitely you put the work in.
Yeah.
And like some of those lines, like, I don't know, how many times you been to Angel Fire?
A good handful. It was my first big bike park that I went to, and then I've gone pretty much every summer, at least like 4 or 5 times. So I've probably been like at least 10 or 12 times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of know the lines.
Yeah.
Like, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a good time. I was glad to this time around to do different lines like Upper Supreme.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like that one a lot.
That was super fun following you because you were just getting so like loose with it.
Oh yeah.
Just, like, squirreling.
Yeah, loosey in there.
And that's what you got to do. You got to flow.
Yeah.
Find the flow in the chunk. That's my favorite stuff.
Yeah. Mine too.
Mm-hmm.
You've been to Trestle, right?
Yes.
I think one of my favorite lines is Double Jeopardy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I forget about that one.
I wish it was kind of a bit more chunk, but I like it because it's got a little bit of everything. It's got like some kind of flow in the beginning, and then you got the chunk, and then you go back to flow. But what I really love is kind of like on Ziggy at Angel Fire, you got those going like fast through the trees. They're like really tight.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe because I feel like I'm going faster. I'm not sure because the trees are kind of just zooming by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I really like that. I don't know what you call that.
Like single track chunk. I don't know. Yeah, like it is kind of racetracky, and there are like on that thin area. There's like some little line options.
Yeah. So, pretty farted. So I know we had talked about formation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Red Bull formation.
I know we talked about it in the car on the way from Angel Fire on the way back when you rode with us, and we kind of discussed some of the ideas. But as far as I know, they haven't really shifted anything with that, right?
No.
Anything officially?
No, I think like so. I've been following all the kind of little updates from Girls Pull Up Not Out, and they're being very vocal about like the hashtag Let Them Ride, and so and it's an account run by women, so like they're definitely pushing for a women's category at Rampage, especially in the absence of formation. So formation's been going on for the past, I think, 3 or 4 years. 3. Yeah. But I really started paying attention to it like in the past 2 years. There's a gal, Hannah Bergman, and then Casey Brown, who are like kind of like the two that I've most paid attention to, like since I've started riding. But yeah, they're just like amazing riders, and it's super inspiring to see as a woman, seeing other women do these crazy things, and so formation gave them somewhat of a platform to build and ride those crazy lines, old Red Bull lines, old Rampage lines, and so then apparently this year it was like it wasn't really promoted, and then they just sort of didn't like set a date or anything, so I don't know if you can really call it canceled or if they just didn't hold it, and it's not clear why. But yeah, the most recent like update that I saw from the Girls Pull Up Not Out was Red Bull saying that like the Rampage is for like the top 18 riders. Period. Yeah. And that they're working on some way to include women, but they haven't figured it out yet, type of thing. But, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't know it was going on for 4 years. I thought it was maybe like a couple.
Yeah,
and
I definitely
probably
right. Too. But yeah.
Yeah, and I was seeing some videos like from Casey Brown and Hannah Bergman. Is that right? And then a few others. And my original point, like in the car, was like, well, at first it was kind of like I can understand from a financial standpoint if it's not bringing in the numbers.
Yeah.
And not enough women are supporting, like, you know, whether it's in viewership or attendance or what have you. Then from a monetary standpoint, it wouldn't be beneficial for the Red Bull to do it. And on the other side, right, it's kind of like when men started, they were just surviving the lines, and it's how do we get to from there and then provide a place for them to be able to progress to the point where they're able to do like backflips and all this other stuff. So Formation is a separate event from Rampage, right? So Formation was the event, and Red Bull used to host that.
Yeah, it was called Red Bull Formation. I think it was given like a small budget so that the women could like have teams out there rebuilding lines or, and then I know I saw a couple like highlight videos, but there wasn't a ton of like promotion. So there wasn't it wasn't a huge investment that I know of, but it gave them like at least kind of like a practice ground to like see like, kind of a proof of concept. For women going out there and doing the same thing. Yeah. And
Do you know of any women that have sent a video? Like the guys do, like to try to be selected for Rampage.
The closest thing that I heard was that Casey Brown like kind of like really made a case to them. So I don't know. She probably sent it.
It'd be cool to see that video.
Yeah.
Because isn't that like one part of the application process, if you will, like to create like a video to like, hey, select me for Red Bull Rampage 2023.
I would assume, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, yeah. And to your point about like that, I just started riding in 2020, and so I think my first Red Bull Rampage that I watched was that 2021 or 20, and. So I've not watched that whole historical buildup of it, and so that is really interesting to think about the fact that men were just riding down these things just to survive, and then it's progressed to like almost like slope style down a cliff.
Yeah.
But if you think, I think like some of the arguments that are being made is like, okay, so it wasn't popular for women to be riding back then, and maybe it's picked up in popularity more recently. But the progression in the women's sport is just kind of exponential because they have the mentorship of these men who've been doing it for years, and then they have like that kind of like the drive to try these things. But we're not. You don't see the top women doing the same thing as the top men yet.
Right.
But maybe it could be there.
And I mean, there is also like I don't know. It's just like UFC, right? There's like a biological advantage in the sense of like strength and abilities just because of the way we're designed like separately because it's like a puzzle, you know what I mean, like to link together, so to speak, like in just for evolution of life, but with that it also comes with there's strengths and weaknesses from both sides of it, and I think it'd be cool to see like women like progress to the point where they could be where the men are at or doing some of the similar things or maybe just differently like in their own way.
Yeah, because it could just be a completely different looking route, like women's soccer versus men's soccer. Like it's like somewhat of a different game. There's like different types of finesses that
I like watching women's soccer or football, however I want to say it, more than I do like watching the men's. And maybe again, it's kind of like when I was making the point about jiu-jitsu. I like watching our UFC women fighters over men fighting. And it could be to the ignorance. I don't understand. Like, I have an appreciation for like the subtleties of the art of fighting, and like, oh yeah, that's a rear naked choke, and he's going to this, he's gonna move, whatever. So for me, right now, it's still like the excitement of it, just kind of going at it. You know what I mean? And it's not to. I enjoy to see women beat each other up. It's just, I don't know. I can appreciate just like fighting in general, you know, just like, I don't know, have you ever been in a fight?
No, I wish.
I
I did boxing for like a year, but I never made it to the point where like my coach put me in a competition, but I always wanted to be in a fight, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, never say never. I mean, fighting. I mean, I've been in a lot of street fights. Some of them, like it's just like wild, like chaos. You know, sometimes it's 1-on-1.
Is it scary? Or you just think
honestly, like it can be at times, because especially if there's like a brawl and there's like more than 4 people fighting, or 8 people, I guess, fighting at the same time.
It's chaotic.
And I've been there, so you're like constantly like having to look, but your adrenaline's rushing so high that you're just kind of in action. You don't really have time to be like, oh, I'm scared right now. I mean, I guess you could be, but I haven't found myself in that position where I was like that. And then 1-on-one's like a different type of fight, and I've also kind of been like in sparring, like with, you know, martial arts stuff, but it's not, I've never been in that high level of fight to understand like this person knows how to counter, they know how to do this stuff, because it's a different world nowadays, and that's why I wanted to start taking martial arts again, or jiu-jitsu or something, because you can get your ass kicked. Like, you don't even know what people know nowadays, because information is just kind of flowing in YouTube or anything, and the people know way more. I don't know that they know way more than they ever have, but it's definitely a lot more accessible than it's ever been before.
Yeah.
I mean, just like mountain biking, right? You can look at how to corner, or how to fix your derailleur or index it.
That's true.
And it's, I always say it's like the long form of the Matrix. You know what I mean? Where they plug Neo in.
Oh, yeah.
And they download information.
Yeah.
But this is like more, I guess, visual and tactile.
Yeah.
I guess that would be, that'd be wild, like if you can actually have I guess we're getting there.
Yeah, like put a chip in you that you can. Yeah.
Neuralink.
A chip in your brain, yeah.
Yeah, Elon Musk has been talking about doing that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And controlling people? Or just like...
Well, if he is, he hasn't said that out loud yet. Yeah, it's called Neuralink. It's supposed to be, they probably got smaller now, but at the time when I saw it, it's the size of a quarter. And it's like a chip they put in your brain, and of course, most of the times, the application is for like a disability of some sorts, whether it's like neurological or physiological. Yeah. And the claim is that they can put this in for, let's say, a quadriplegic, and then they can put this chip in, and then pretty much, I don't want to say hack the brain, but connect the wires electrically for somebody that's, you know, dealing with whatever disability, and then they can start being mobile and functional again.
That's pretty cool.
But, you know, there's always the other side, right?
There's the other side. There's the control, or like...
Yeah, because, I mean, human nature, could either be good or bad. Yeah. Yes. Would you do it?
Put a chip in my brain?
Yeah. What if they're like, hey, Teresa, it's free.
And the benefit would be that you could have this knowledge.
Yeah, you could access the internet. You could be online with other people, be speaking to people telepathically, or I guess, I don't know about telepathically, but...
Oh, like instead of having to call them up, they... I don't think so. But maybe once it's been tested. I don't think I'm that. I don't know. I don't think I would want to do that yet.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Cause can you imagine like everything, even like YouTube or Twitter, anything, right? It's free at first, but then after a while, like you start seeing ads.
Yep.
And then can you imagine like not be able to shut off the ads?
Oh, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
In your like regular life. Oh, that'd be wild.
Yeah, because people can't even put their phone. It's hard for people, myself included. Like sometimes I'll be on Instagram and I'll just be like scrolling. I'm like, fuck, you know, I have to consciously stop myself.
The doom scroll, yeah.
The doom scroll?
Yes.
I never heard that before.
Yep, it's doom scrolling. You just scroll and then you're like, oh, it's been 3 hours. And it's like 1 in the morning. You're like,
yeah, I haven't done anything I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that's gnarly.
So how do you manage that with school now?
Oh yeah. Well, I think right now I'm feeling a lot of motivation from school. Like I feel interested in the material. I'm doing mental health counseling, a master's in mental health counseling, And so, like, just looking at the content, like, is what I would like to be doing, even when I'm doom scrolling, like learning about how people's brains work, and like what we were talking about earlier with like almost like self-diagnosing yourself, and then it's kind of using that as a crutch. We were like, there was a chapter that was talking about those types of defense mechanisms. So it's like, it's stuff that super interests me, and so that does keep me. I mean, I guess, yeah. There are times I think it's hard because the phone, you get text on it, or like it's such an automatic thing to grab for. So maybe even if I am engaged in a chapter, if I have to like change over to like take notes on my computer or something, if my phone's in the vicinity, sometimes it's hard to like not pick it up.
Yeah.
And just check, see if I've got a notification. But I wouldn't say it's super detrimental to my school yet. But I'm also highly motivated right now, so hopefully I can keep that momentum through the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, the people that make these social media apps and programs, they have hired on like clinical psychologists and to understand the human brain, so it makes it more pretty addicting. Exactly, right? Yeah. It's just like and I'm using this because I've cited this before, but the Social Dilemma, which is a documentary. You've seen that? Okay, so it's talking about like the scrolling. It's kind of similar to a slot machine. The dopamine hits, the likes, and I think it's interesting how Instagram shows the heart as opposed to a like. I feel like we're like slowly, like, we're having to. The competitive nature of every app is competing with the like human emotion, but essentially it's going to make something as personal and as deep as love and make it nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we're just going to be like, oh,
That's
it starts out with just a heart.
Yep.
And it's just a like, but it's just slowly degrading it over time.
That's interesting to think about. It does. I mean, and that's, or at least when we think about how we think we're keeping up with our friends and we're keeping up with their posts, that's not a connection.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a virtual connection, but it's not like a true connection, like, because, yeah. And then with that, like, I've heard of people that get envious of other people's posts, you know, and they don't understand why, but they don't also understand, like, when the person posted it, like, they were actually sad about whatever, you know, and then trying to portray something else, because, you know, they don't want other people to see that they're sad.
No, you just see the highlight reel.
Yeah, and yeah, it's crazy, like, because it tricks. I don't want to say tricks. It just gives a false sense of reality for anybody, and if somebody's going through it and they're watching somebody else and they look at their life, the realistic nature of their life, and it's just like, to them it looks like shit, you know, because they're not learning how to appreciate their blessings or everything they have in their life, and they compare it to something extreme, right? Like so-and-so's in Utah or Colorado or wherever, and then like they haven't gone on vacation like in 2 years or something.
True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but it's just, they can do it, but most people can do it, but they just don't. One, they either have a fear of like traveling, or maybe I won't make it, or what if I get lost, or what if I don't have enough money. There's all these things, but if you would actually just do it, you know, and save up the money and then go, like, you'll get better at it, like traveling. It's like anything else. So you travel quite a bit.
And it does. I feel like it gets easier, or it doesn't. I guess like you can still get that anxiety, but yeah, it's almost like that exposure kind of therapy that we were talking about. I remember like when I first went like abroad for my year and a half, just sort of traveling in Asia and South America. When I was taking off for Asia, since I didn't know the language, I've never really been there. I had gone to Thailand when I was a kid with my parents, but this is like, I was going solo. I didn't know the language. Like, I didn't know what to expect. And I like a couple days before I left, I like sat down. I was like crying with my mom. I was like, I'm like scared. Am I doing the right thing? And she was pretty encouraging, like that you can do this, and if you need to come back, you come back, type of a thing. And I kind of made deals with myself about like if things got too hard, then I would join a formal tour. But then you get over there, and you find out that like people are helpful, or that you can communicate a little bit better than you thought you could, and then even just with like road tripping and stuff too, like I guess there is some, I mean there's definitely fears of like, because you hear weird stories about people disappearing or like your car breaking down, and I guess you just sort of take those things as they come, and you realize that, like, knock on wood, you're not constantly having these like challenges, and the reward is like seeing beautiful places and like having new experiences and meeting different people from around different places and making connections. And so I think the payoff is a lot more than always like the negative stories that we tell, or that keep people staying home.
So what made you want to go to school?
Or
disagree?
So for like, I've been thinking about it for 2 years, because I've been working remote for a tech company out of Washington, which has really enabled me to travel, like do the van life thing, and I'm super grateful for that. It was full-time remote, super good like work-life balance. But I did find myself just like not motivated, like in the way that I'm saying that like my phone doesn't get in the way in a detrimental way of my school because I'm actually interested in it. It got fully in the way of my work because I just felt like I wasn't engaged. Like I just like it was I guess it was burnout. I just like I knew what I needed to do, and it's remote work. Like I should be like engaged and like do my 8 hours, earn my keep, and go explore wherever I am. But it was just getting harder and harder to like motivate myself to sit at a laptop all day, and it was really just time to like start investing in that next step of my career that would actually be fulfilling to me. And so since I've been thinking that way for like the past 2 years, actually 2 years ago when I got that job at Smartsheet, I had simultaneously gotten into this university called Saybrook University, which is based out of California, but it's a hybrid program, so mostly remote, but you do get to meet your cohort in person twice a year, which is also kind of attractive to me because I didn't want to like just be talking to more faces on a screen that I've never met before. And so I had gotten in 2 years ago, and like the admissions counselor had like hit me up just about like every quarter ever since then, just to be like, hey, like, you want to like reapply or And I finally like took the bait this last spring. I was like, sure, let's like go back through the process. And so then I just sort of just kept taking each little step that needed to happen, and then all of a sudden like this fall I was like re-enrolled and figured out financial aid, and so it was just time, I think, because I knew it wasn't going to be sustainable to like continue in the tech world with the way that I was performing. Like it just didn't bring me confidence in what I was doing, because I'm not the type of person who wants to be the one like slacking off or something like that. But if it's like I'm not finding the motivation, that's the person I was becoming, and that wasn't feeding back into like confidence about who I am.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't fulfilling you. And I know what that's like. Well, I've had some experiences where it's hard for me to sit behind a laptop and just like plug away, go to meetings, and then go to meetings about the meetings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just like this office politics and all everything that kind of goes with it, and like being inside all day, it's not for me. So I can understand that from that standpoint, and then especially when you're doing something you think is important but other people don't see it the same way, and so you have this conflict of values, I guess, which it shouldn't be that way, but it's just the way that the world is. Unfortunately, sometimes. But I'm glad you kind of shift. Well, one, became aware of it, and then two, decided to do something about it, as opposed to just being like pissed off at the world, taking it out on everyone, and not changing your situation.
True. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, what do you? I know you'll probably cross this bridge when you get there, but have you ever any thoughts of what you plan to do with the degree, or is it just for your self enlightenment?
Yeah, I am kind of inspired to like do my like have a private practice, because that would enable me to have a similar freedom. I have one of my kind of like gurus, or like the one like person who inspired me, was my best friend's sister, who finished the program I think a year or two ago now. And so she like got out, was very motivated, opened up her own private practice, and she had like a full schedule within 6 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so I'm inspired by that. She also does all of her sessions remote. I don't know if I want to do that, because it would be nice to like see my clients like in person. But yeah, we'll cross that bridge when I get there. But like, that would also require me to anchor somewhere.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That's been on my mind too, and like that. Yeah, so we'll see if I can anchor down somewhere. It's hard for me to pick because I feel like I've got communities everywhere, and
yeah. I mean, it could be somewhat of I guess, a hybrid system where you could go around and then rent a space or something and see people in that area, and have like, as you travel around, you can continue to visit those people, like remotely, and then have a session in face to face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you follow Jordan Peterson at all?
I've heard that name.
He's a psychologist.
Oh yeah.
In Canada, but he was talking about like he has a lot of interesting things to say. He comes out very controversial to some people, but
is he the redhead, long hair?
No. Okay. No. He's probably like in his mid 60s,
okay,
70s maybe. Probably jacking up his age, but he has pretty profound thoughts on everything. He's been a psychologist forever. And one of the things he was talking about, like in this space now, with everything with, it's kind of like a buzzword now, but like woke culture, how a lot of his peers are like they have told him and vice versa, that they're not allowed to challenge their patients anymore. So if a patient has a delusional idea of, let's say they're Superman or whatever, I mean, at the end of the day, we could go into discussion like, well, I mean, what that person sees as their reality is like probably their reality. Who do you tell them different? But at the same time, if we're trying to challenge a person to get them back to that space where they can kind of function within their family or what have you, then there has to be some type of challenges, or at least breadcrumbs to lead them back to where they are in therapy for in the first place.
Yeah.
So when I'm hearing it, from him, is that that's one of the challenges that they find in their career field, where patients are complaining because they are being challenged on some of the ideas that they came in with, which is strange to me, right? I mean, it's strange to me because if you do not want to be challenged and want to get better, then
why are you paying this person?
Yeah, why are you paying this person? Why are you going in the first place? Do you have any thoughts on that? Like that, just that idea. Like if you were to come across somebody in, I don't know, says, I don't know, they're the president of the United States, like maybe a deceased president of the United States, it'd be, how would you, I don't want to say how would you, because wouldn't you expect to want to challenge them to some extent of...
Yeah, you would definitely need to do it in like a tactful way. I'm in beginning counseling skills, and then like some like counseling theories and stuff. So we've just started getting into that, and so I'm trying to pull from that. But essentially, like you definitely what we're practicing right now is not asking questions and not overtly giving advice, just reflecting back what you're hearing. So at this point, yeah, I wouldn't be necessarily challenging And then like the idea would be to like build up enough of a client-patient relationship where you could start to put in those challenges,
right,
and put in those like drop those little thoughts of knowledge where that might make them think differently.
mm-hmm.
Man, but if it was something that was completely delusional, then I'm not sure how I'd handle that at this point. I'm assuming they'll train us.
Right.
Yeah. But man, because you could just blow up that client relationship if you immediately go to like, no, that's completely wrong.
Right.
But there is somewhat of a responsibility to call out things, maybe if it was like posing some sort of danger.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. It's just I find that interesting, but it kind of unfortunately makes sense if you kind of zoom out and kind of just see a lot of the things that are going on like within our society right now. There's just a lot of beliefs being said that are not, and they're just being said and expected to be seen as fact, and it's just like, and expect you to believe it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's just like, whoa, like I don't think you're a dragon, but you know what I mean. But anywho,
maybe the goal would be to get them to come around and come to their own conclusions. Like, does that actually make sense? That like whatever slightly untruth thing. It's like, can we like think about that?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, we have our own beliefs about whatever, but to change somebody else's viewpoint or their reality forcibly, that doesn't. I don't care what it is. Like, it could be the greatest thing in the world, but if you're forcing somebody based off of an idea you have, then like two wrongs don't make it right. If that makes sense. Like it's just like you're gonna
force them harder.
Yeah, you're gonna force them, because it could be anything. It could be like, hey, eat healthy, and but if somebody's like every day, like, you're gonna fucking eat healthy because this is what I see, and it's just human nature. You're just gonna push back against it after a while.
That's true.
Because you want your own autonomy, you want your own, like, way to do things, and I don't know. And my freaking eye is itching.
I know. Man, well, and I'm thinking of my own, like somebody's not gonna change their mind unless they're ready.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think maybe some of that could come with like building, like it in terms of therapy, like a therapist-client relationship. And I'm thinking about my own therapy. I had a therapist in Seattle that was really great. And I think I went to him for like 6 years, but I remember one of the first times where he kind of really shocked me into like, oh, this like behavior of mine isn't okay, or like, and I remember after that session, that whole next week, I was like so mad. I was like, how dare he like talk to me like that, or like, I don't know, but it was this whole a week-long process of me like figuring out what I'm going to say to him the next time I go in. And I mean, he acknowledged, like, when I did come back in and I addressed these things, and he explained why he handled me the way he did. He was worried that there was a possibility I didn't come back. But because we had, I think at that point, maybe like a year or two under our belt, there was at least that relationship where I could come back and be like, this is what I've reflected on all week, and I've been feeling these feelings all week. And he was able to use that to like be like, well, think about the way that you make other people feel, type of a thing.
Yeah.
And so, it was kind of a risk on his part, but it did kind of snap me back into like, oh, this, like, I'm in here, I'm paying him, like, I'm the one who needs to be like making like changes. I don't know. So, yeah. And maybe it did take that snap, but he couldn't have done that like the first 2 weeks in.
Yeah, I had something similar happen to me, and it was the truth, and I wasn't in a, like, I had just met this dude, and he I was talking about incidents that I had while drinking, and he just pretty much blamed me. And it was the place I was in at the time, and there's a lot of things to it, but he was just like, well, maybe you should stop drinking. He just told me like that, and it's the fucking truth, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, in my mind, I was like, who the fuck are you to be telling me what to do? But no, it was very accurate, and it took some time of reflection. I didn't see that guy like too long after that, because it was just like he was just doing like an assessment of where I was at. I was going through the process before I got shifted over to the VA. But yeah, when he told me that, I was just like so angry. Yeah, like how fucking dare you tell me what I need to hear? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly what
I was like, you don't even fucking know me, and I had this ego about me, and at the time, I guess, whether I realized it or not, I was starting to build an addiction for alcohol, and it's hard for me to say that now. Well, it's not hard for me to say it because I just said it, but it was hard for me to say that for a while. But at the same time, like, I don't know, it's been a process. So like now I kind of welcome. Like, honestly, it sucks sometimes to hear, but, you know, it's needed if you're going to become a better individual, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that kind of, like, honesty, obviously, again, there has to be, like, tact with it, but, like, I think that makes you a better partner, a better friend, and stuff. I always appreciate when you call me out and stuff, like, you can practice your patience right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not trying to be rude. No. Maybe you take it that way.
No, I didn't even take it. I was like, oh, you're right. Dang it.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what's helped me. It's like, it's trying to control my reactions to things. Because for a while, like, in my neighborhood, it's something that was ingrained in me, right? It's like, you either speak your mind now, or you choose to get disrespected, and somebody's gonna disrespect, like, or kick your ass later, or whatever, right? And there's this, I'm not saying it happened all the time, but that was a general, but a likely thing that could happen. So over time, you know, in fact, in the military, then like this chip I had on my shoulder, plus, you know, rank or whatever. And I don't think I ever like really used rank a lot, but at the same time, it came with a sense of, if you allow somebody to talk to you this way, then other people are going to talk to you this way. So I became, it kind of, what's the word? It validated the way I got brought up even more so. So if somebody said something, I would react. Like, sometimes I wouldn't want to, and sometimes I wouldn't say anything. But after a while, I was just like, no, I need to say something right now. But then that became, I guess, exacerbated with other, like, traumas and events, where that even got less and less. So, like, that, I don't want to say trigger point. I think it's over fucking used now. But, like, it was essentially like a trigger. But I would kind of react to the wrong people at the wrong times, and it just became too easy to do. And I thought that I had control, because I was controlling how, like, I'm not going to be disrespected or whatever, like whatever I was thinking at that time. But really, I was out of control. You know, it was the exact opposite. It's just like because you're allowing somebody else to control you. By something they say, and you're just so easily teased, and you're just like, fuck you, whatever, you know. And it's like, no, like, but in my mind, I thought, like, I was in control of but I really wasn't.
That's so interesting, because I think, like, one thing that I've been working on for so long is like, not jumping to anger, because anger is such a powerful emotion, and that when I was younger, like, it could control it feels like control, because you're either scaring people into submission or warding them away. Yeah. But you're completely out of control, and your physiology's like all fired up and stuff like that. And so I feel that.
Yeah, anger is an accepted emotion. Like, that's one of the more accepted emotions, especially with males. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's just whatever, like. But I don't know if sadness is really accepted emotion or
No, because does it make like other people uncomfortable
yeah.
or something? Yeah.
Have you ever like, I don't want to say you cried in front of somebody, but you've ever seen somebody not be able to how to handle when somebody starts crying, or they kind of like freeze up and like, don't know what to do.
Yeah.
It's because we're so I'll speak in general, but I feel like it's been so like squashed, and I'm not saying you should cry for everything, but that is a human emotion. We are humans that your body's trying to release something, or there's something going on. It's kind of the canary in the coal mine, right?
Oh yeah.
And because if you don't release that in some way, in an appropriate manner, like in an appropriate place, then it will come out in opportune times. You know what I mean? And if we aren't prepared to handle that, then that person will suppress and suppress and suppress, and then it becomes, where they either attack themselves, or somebody else.
That's so true. Yeah, it turns into a different behavior than if it was just processed. And then if it's held in for so long, then it turns into symptoms. And
physical, it can turn into some severe stuff.
Which that is one good thing that maybe nowadays more people are more comfortable using terms about emotions I'm just anxious or I'm depressed and so that's one good thing about that. But if we over diagnose ourselves and then kind of use that as our scapegoat.
Yeah. And there's a balance to everything, right? There's can't be too angry, can't be too happy, It's you gotta be somewhere in the middle. That's the ideal place, is to kind of hover somewhere in the middle. It's I think we get out of balance a lot of times. That's with anything, you name it, and there has to be a balance to it. If not, it gets out of whack.
Yeah.
Oh, you wanna go out there?
Yeah. And I think that is at least that's been my ultimate goal with my own counseling, is finding more of not these extremes in certain triggered situations or even just generally, but really leveling it out a little bit more. And the only way to do that is to figure out what you're actually feeling in those moments that makes you spiral up or
yeah, and it's a good thing to try to be self-aware, but again, it's a skill. I think anybody that's listening to this or that may not know how to be self-aware, address their emotions or what have you, or just be mindful of them, because it's too easy to distract with a phone or social media or alcohol or psychedelics or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And but not understanding that those things are just, they're vehicles, but they could be vehicles to the wrong place. Psychedelics is one of the main ones that people talk about now. Ayahuasca is a big one. But I think people go in with the understanding that they're gonna have somebody else's experience and they're gonna be fixed. But not understand whatever you learn from said experience, whether good or bad, you need to apply it and do the work to sustain it. Because it's not meant to, there are antidotes, or not antidotes, there's evidence-based where people go with an addiction and they leave with not having that addiction. There are cases like that. But if you are going in with the wrong intent to do something, if you use it, this is my personal opinion, if you use it just what's the word, recreationally, it's going to give you what you get. It's good. You're going to get out what you put into it. But if you're going with an intent to work on something specifically and actually do the setting right and not have a party or nothing, you can actually do some serious work with it. Of course, I always recommend having a sitter or what have you, somebody you trust, somebody that's not going to take advantage of you. There are a lot of programs now. Johns Hopkins did a huge study now that they're implying or using with veterans. I don't think, but there's a bunch of like nonprofits that are doing it to help veterans through it, but also it's being applied with other, sources like ketamine, MDMA, psilocybin, ayahuasca is another one. I'm not sure if they're using that one in practice, but that one you can go to Mexico, Peru, or different places. But it's still, in my opinion, the same thing. It's like, yes, this will kind of get you out of that rut, but you still have to do the work and apply what you've learned to it, and not just think that this is going to end all be all.
Yeah. Do you know, so when you go into a session like that, do they do a lot of pre-work to figure that out, what your intent is going to be? Or?
Yeah. I've never been to a program like that, but I would imagine, based off of the limited information that I've read, is there is at least with the veterans, there is a counselor you work with. Up to that point, you try to address what your. It's like with anything else, like you doing CBT, which is I almost said computer-based training. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CPT, cognitive processing therapy, or EMDR. You're trying to like tease out like all these traumas, right, and then figure out, hey, which ones do you want to work on? Because you can't go in with all of them. True. So you put out these 3 or 4, and then you have a session where they kind of like walk you through it, whether it's writing or whether it's drawing or something. But at least with like psilocybin and I think ketamine, they put like blindfold over you, and they have music, and then they try to walk you through. There's somebody there with you to kind of, as a sitter, to walk you through the process, walk you through whatever emotions you're going through. And the research shows that, at least with most of the cases, I don't say it's successful for all of them, but a lot of them, they reduce, if not get rid of, most of the symptoms that were, hindering X person.
It's super neat, because we put up so many blocks and inhibitions that like prevent us from like releasing from bad patterns. And like the blocks are there, they were like previous defense mechanisms or something that kept us safe, but it's not productive if it's causing behaviors that are like detrimental now.
And that's exactly what it does. It's like it pretty much kills your ego to a certain extent, or at least brings it down. So a lot of the work and healing can begin. It almost puts you like it resets you to a baseline, and then sometimes it's a few sessions, sometimes a little bit more, but it's only what is needed to get you to that point. Okay. But it's like breaking a bone, right? When you break a bone, there's some, you gotta fix it, and then you have time to let it heal. And within that healing is the processing of whatever things you processed, and then you're kind of like writing down. And it's I don't know what other word to use other than a process. Yeah, in the bone, like if your bone had already set in a certain way, they have to like re-break it, and then which hurts. It sucks. It's painful. It's all these things, and you probably don't want to do it beforehand because you know it's gonna hurt and all these things. Like if you allow that to happen, I mean, I think in therapy they also talk about like describing trauma as a wound that won't heal, and it just keeps getting infected, but if you kind of clean it out, it's gonna suck and hurt, but it's gonna heal, and it's gonna be better. And I forget what other words they use. Yeah. So so you decided to go for this degree to help others or help yourself, or both? Yeah. I think just from my own like therapy journey, like I value it a lot. I value therapy, and I think it can benefit
pretty much anyone. And so, and there's all sorts of different modalities and stuff. I've done just regular talk therapy, and then internal family systems, and then somatic therapy. I'm super interested in CBT, yeah. And then dialectical behavioral therapy as well. I'm interested in learning.
What is dialectical behavioral therapy?
It's like it's I think it's a form where like it's resetting those reactions, like, and getting closer and closer to like real time. I'm studying it. I picked it as like my topic to study. Nice. So yeah, so I'll learn more. One of my friends had shared a certain practice because she also values therapy a lot, and like she shared what her like DBT therapist, either it's like she has a DBT therapist or somebody who's like has that modality in their repertoire, but it was like the acronym STOP, and it's like when you feel yourself getting like emotionally overstimulated, or like you're losing it, you're kind of starting to spiral. It's something to like bring you back into your body.
So like grounding.
Yeah.
Like grounding yourself.
Yeah, because I think like if you get so sucked up into the story, which it's not hard to do that, like you can totally lose like just the sense of like I am okay sitting right here, and like and it brings you back like to your breath, I'm pretty sure. So yeah.
Yeah, it's because your mind doesn't know any better. Like that's why I think, I don't know, with Andrew Huberman, that kind of brought me to this state of awareness of with information diet. It's like if you're watching scary movies all the time or trash, like your body is going through the physiological reactions, I guess, to whatever you're watching, the stimuli that you're watching, and your hands get sweaty and get nervous, you get up, start stress eating. That's what I do. I fucking start eating something or whatever. I notice that. I'm like, man, every time I watch something stressful, I'm eating something. So, but if your mind doesn't, like, it doesn't know the difference. It doesn't know you're watching TV. It just knows that it's taking this input. Something's happening, and you're starting to get like stressed out. So with that, it's your mind or your body's going to react to whatever you're watching. So in the same regard with trauma, if you're processing, it's remembering all that. So it's like all those reactions are starting to happen again. So that's why people are like, it doesn't make sense. Well, because I used to do too, but you're at work all day, you're stressed all day, you come home, and then you watch, I don't know, like Real Housewives in LA or whatever, or you're watching like a scary movie or something, and then your body's stressed from the morning it goes to work, you're all day at work, you're stressed for the most part, you drive home through traffic, you're stressed for the most part, you come home, you eat something, and then you're watching something stressful, and then you go to bed and you're wondering why you're so stressed out.
And your body never comes out of that.
Yeah, because it doesn't reset.
Yeah, I think like that, like we can control our minds to a certain extent, and it's really important to like to be giving it the right messages.
That's why it's good to be bored. Or like meditation. That's why that is so more important now. Or just
because your brain just chills out for a second.
Yeah, or riding a bike.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, without music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. But since we are so addicted to that chemical reaction of the stress, like that's why we like engage in stressful, like, I don't know, posts on the internet. Or dang, that's such an interesting concept. Yeah, and
it could be, I don't know, coffee. It could be caffeine. It could
stuff that ups us.
Yeah. It could ups you or bring you down. I know there's a lot of people that use like cannabis to like for their anxiety or whatever. I don't know how I did that, but like it becomes that crutch, right? It doesn't matter what it is. It could be heroin. It could be whatever. Like you can say, I'm using this to combat whatever, or to bring me down to whatever, and that works in the beginning. But the more you do it, the more of a tolerance you build, the more it takes, and then your body becomes addicted to it because of the dopamine it releases every time you do this action.
Yeah.
And just like the phone, where it brings these dopamine hits, so people liking your post or whatever, sharing it, or commenting on it, it does the same thing. And if you always depend on that crutch and it's taken away, then you have this withdrawals.
Yeah.
And you don't know how to like self-regulate. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and then even like pushing it to the point of like your brain like can't self-regulate. Yeah, so that is a practice. I feel like I need to meditate more now that we're talking about that. Like,
I do too. I mean, we all do. I mean, I say these things not with the sense from this place of like, oh yeah, you know, I do this, I do that. No, I'm aware I need to do those things. I'm aware of this information, but do I practice them all the time? No. It's just because I'm human like everyone else. There's like an ebb and flow of balance, right? It's like shit. I need to get in the gym. You know what I mean? It's like, because you know there's all these benefits to it, but we don't do it. Yeah. And it's like trying to pull in the reins of yourself. Yeah. You know, like, hey, I need to tighten it up, you know, not just physically, but mentally. And it's I don't know how many times I gotta say this word balance, but I can't think of any other words, because that's what it is. You're trying to stay in this state, because when stress comes, it knocks you one way or the other, right? Yeah. And then your family life is falling off, your personal relationships, your work suffers or whatever. But if you're already out of balance and you stay in this stress state, and your stress tolerance is going to be, you're going to be able to be dysregulated a lot more easily, as opposed to if you're in the middle.
That's a good way to think about it. Because you just get tipped a little bit more, and then you're snapping at somebody.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that so like that's another reason why I'm like I'd like to be a part of like this therapy solution. Like whatever like modalities I choose to focus on or whatever, I want to be a resource to people. And I think like we're talking about these things that I think like we've both been interested in and that like we know about, but maybe other folks who could really benefit from something like meditation or just like these different thought processes hasn't even been introduced to that yet. Yeah, like one of my old roommate in Arizona, she just started therapy, and her therapist like introduced her to the concept that there's not just fight or flight, there's also fawn and freeze, and she had never heard that before, and I'm like, oh shit, like I feel like I've heard about that for a long time, because I know that that's one of my reactions in certain types of conflict, is just to fawn and submit and whatever. And but that's so when she said that she had just learned that day, I was like, oh, like there are people that need the information to help themselves, and so being able to be a resource to people, and then I do really want to help transracial adoptees, because I was adopted from Paraguay, and I think that's one of the big things that I've most recently been working through in therapy, is like how that impacts my life and how that impacts my nervous system, and so being able to help other transracial adoptees would be awesome, because all of my therapists have been white until this year, and I finally found a gal from Colombia who's also a transracial adoptee, and the nuance of that, like her life knowledge walking through the world as a Latina, like has come into our sessions in a really profound way. Like I've never felt like any type of like negative aspect of having like white therapists, but just the benefit of having like an understanding from another Latina, like has been really,
like culturally,
really powerful. Like just being able to understand, like literally understand some of the interactions that I've gone through or something like that, versus like having read about it or educated themselves on it.
Right.
So I would love to be a resource as a transracial adoptee to people. It's hard. It's hard to find.
No, and that's cool that you're giving back in that way. Like you're doing it with I think that's more sustainable if you're doing it for something bigger than yourself, as opposed to just like, I want to make this money. You know, they get paid a lot of money or what have you. Because some people, you can go to any career field and you'll find like nurses or doctors or whatever, and you can tell that they weren't in it for the people. Or maybe they were at some point, they got jaded, but for the most part, I feel like some of them got in it because they're chasing the money aspect of it. And
Yeah.
it should be some type of personality test or something that
Yeah.
kind of prohibits, I don't want to say prohibits, but keeps certain people out of certain characters because they're not meant for that career field.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because that to like the soft side of it, like maybe they just aren't good at what they do, but then it could get dangerous to the other side where
Yeah.
like, they're doing stuff detrimental to the
Yeah, they just neglect because
Yeah.
they don't have compassion or
Mhm.
they can't sympathize
Yeah.
or empathize with somebody because
Yeah.
it's just not in their nature, and
Yeah.
maybe they're more like an analytical person and they'd be happier, like, I don't know, as an accountant or an engineer or something like that, where they can look at stuff systematically or mechanically or what have you, and kind of provide their contribution to that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm.
at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know. I mean, people choose what they want, and I guess that's one of the benefits of living in a free society.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you have the negatives that come with it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm curious, how are we doing on time?
Oh.
Can you see it? Is that still recording?
It's 9:30. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like we got time.
I was also thinking that like it could be cool. I don't know how it'll work it in, but like it would be really cool to do some sort of like how like dirt therapy is super valuable, like to get people out in nature, on bikes, doing adrenaline stuff,
Mhm.
and then also just that bonding. Like man, that would be cool. Like work bikes into some sort of therapy thing or outdoors. Like
Yeah.
they already have like
I interviewed somebody before, and they had they were going to school for the same thing. I should probably follow up with them, see where they're at with it. But they were talking, they're a mountain biker as well, and they were talking about doing the same thing, like integrating mountain biking and then also have the degree with it to kind of mesh the two in.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I've learned is if you can do it in a way where it's not as structured, I guess, because, and I think that's one of the benefits of TDTP is that it happens organically.
Mm-hmm.
Again, technically, we do not have a counselor on staff or what have you,
Mm-hmm.
but people do have their own life experiences they share with each other.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've learned is the healing comes from veteran to veteran
Mm-hmm.
more so than it does a counselor. The counselor is there as a guide,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like kind of you talking about, like, you know, the last therapist you have, she has similar experiences where she's able to connect with you more.
Yeah.
And not to say that all veterans' experiences are the same, but they can kind of understand. They know what it is to deploy. They know what it is to leave their families. They know what it is to be divorced. They know what there's all these things that happen within service that people can connect with, or just formation, or
Mm-hmm.
all these things. And the same thing with you. You're able to connect with a person more, and thinking, I guess in broader terms, it's not the experiences, though those are important to each individual. It's the symptoms that come from those experiences that bond people.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and like the understanding of the situation.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not going to be judged for it. 'Cause,
Yeah.
Somebody knows where it's coming from, sort of thing.
Yeah, like people know, like, what a panic attack. If
Yeah.
you've had a panic attack before, I'm trying to put that on you, but if you've had it, I've had one where we're like, damn, that sucks, and we can kind of connect on that.
Mm-hmm.
We know what it is to be depressed or not to withdraw or isolate or avoid or whatever. We understand what those things are. We can connect on those things. But like if we go to, like, I don't know what it is to be, you know, adopted. I don't know that's like. However, on the other side, I know what it's. Either way, my point is, like, there can be connection on the symptoms of it, and I think there can be healing from that.
Definitely. On just like having a common
Community.
Yeah. Community.
And that's really what a tribe, you know.
Yes.
And I think that's what we've lost as a human species is the fire. I wish I could put a fire in here.
Yeah, where we're all sitting around it.
Yeah,
a fire circle.
Yeah.
Fire circles. Yeah.
Because that's where a lot of the healing came from, like in tribes and Native Americans and stuff. Like I read that after like war, they would have like a ceremony, you know, and the warriors would talk about like what happened on the battlefield amongst the community.
Yeah.
So they were able to kind of release those emotions that they had or those losses they had, and the community like kind of buried the trauma of it. Yeah, they handled it together, and they also understood, like to a certain extent, like what war is or what they like what that pain is, and you know what I mean. So they all kind of like from the kids to the elders, they shared it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I mean, it's becoming more practice now, but people don't talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't talk about it.
Yeah, don't talk about it, or don't.
And that's so bad. Yeah.
Yeah, don't bother me with your struggles or whatever.
Yeah, because people don't want to hold it, and then that leaves this imbalance with some people holding like a huge load, and some people having like the privilege or just like the ability to like disappear into their phone and like ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like we've been talking like a lot about negative about of it, but at the same time, going back to it, like you talking about, you trying to raise an awareness, I guess, with your degree, trying to share that information, and I think we take it for granted a lot of times, the information that we do have, so we don't share with anybody. One thing I've learned is at one point in time when I first got out of like therapy or what have you, I mean, I still go like on a weekly basis to a more injury class where have you kind of explored more injury at all? So it's like an offshoot of PTSD. It's like under the umbrella, I guess, of it.
Yeah.
But it's like when something goes against your values, that like kind of like shatters it. You do something that goes against your value system.
Yeah.
And then you have that shame, guilt, pain, and all those things from it. So like, I don't know. Like I do know, but so when something goes against your values that like drastically changes your worldview, like I can't believe I did that, or this happened, I was a part of this, etc. So with that, it's when I first got out of like treatment and I started to kind of get my own footing, I felt like I wanted to go help everyone, you know, and try to, hey man, you should do this and do that. And then I quickly understood like they're not gonna fucking listen to me.
Yeah, nobody hears it at first.
But if you display it, if you walk the walk, so to speak, then they're more likely to come to you and like, hey, how'd you do it, or whatever.
Yeah.
And one of the things with this podcast is to have a conversation to kind of, you know, anybody that's listening, they can be like, damn, like I didn't think about it that way, or damn, that person's story is similar to mine, and hopefully they can start to find their own path out of it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's good, like serving as like inspiration, like having the conversations in a forum that people can hear.
Yeah.
It is kind of cool to be able to share that.
Yeah. Share it in a way where it's not like so direct.
Yeah. This is just like, hey, this is how I'm moving through life. Take what you want and leave what you don't.
Yeah, because I mean, that's with anything. Like not everything is going to apply to your situation.
Yeah.
But if you can take bits and pieces, and in the military they used to call it your toolbox. You know, putting your leadership toolbox or whatever. And I always thought it was a dumb thing, but I use it now, and it makes sense. But it's like, you know, I'm gonna take this technique you talked about, whether it's CBT, find out about what that means, CPT, find out what that means, or EMDR, or I'm gonna try riding a bike. You know, see what that's about.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, that's all you need is nature is the great equalizer in all things, but more so, I feel like it reestablishes our baseline. You know what I mean?
We are nature.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. No matter how far we are, or walled in we are nature.
I got to walk there, Walden Park.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Where Walden?
Yeah.
Oh, like the pond?
Yeah.
Like,
Walden Pond. Yeah.
Where is that?
Near Boston.
Boston. Oh,
yeah,
nice.
near Bedford, Bedford, Massachusetts.
Was it cool? Was it peaceful?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I honestly haven't read much of Walden, but
is it touristy now, or is it?
Oh no, it's like a local spot.
Okay.
You know, there's people there's like a trail you can walk around like the pond, but you can also go swimming in the pond, which is kind of cool. Either way, but yeah. Damn, I lost my damn train of thought.
No.
Something to get hit in the head a lot.
Hmm.
So where have been some places you've gone and you were just like breathtaking?
Breathtaking. Oh man. I really like. Oh man, I'm trying to think of like whether international or not.
It could be your freaking backyard.
Yeah. I mean, there's like some places in Washington when you like hike out and all that you have is just like these mountain views that are so beautiful. There's like the Chain Lakes Trail that goes past like several different alpine lakes, and just like each one you're just getting up higher and then you get to the top and it's just like a basin of like beauty. So yeah.
Wow.
And I love those moments where you can just like sit and you're just there and you take it all in and breathe and oh man. And even you got another one. So in Sedona, the Boynton Canyon Trail, you can hike up that, and then there is this one side trail to like the Subway Caves, which is pretty rad. It's like there's like ancient kind of ruins of like where you could see like people kind of like lived up in the cliff. But then if you go to the end of the canyon, I kind of wasn't expecting much because it's a canyon, and I love like getting to the peaks of things a lot of the time, and so I think I wasn't expecting much because it's a canyon. But I sat at the kind of where you get to sort of the end of the trail, and it's just walls of these like beautiful like white mixed with red type of rock, and yeah, that was another breathtaking place too.
Is that kind of like Mount Zion, like where they're similar, where it's just like these caverns from glaciers,
Yeah.
that are just kind of carved out?
Yeah. It's pretty similar. I love those cliffs.
I need to go there.
Yeah.
Have there ever been like a place where you've gone and you just like felt like you shouldn't be there?
Ooh. Like spiritually? Or like
Maybe. You just never gotten fear?
I have fear. Usually it's associated with other human beings.
Oh.
So
That would be, yeah, I understand that.
yeah, usually if I'm alone I like feel zen.
Yeah.
But yeah, other human beings, if like you don't get a good vibe from them, that's the only time I've not felt welcome. And being like a person of color, you gotta watch out for that. I feel like you always have a radar if like something's feels off.
I run into that a little bit less and less now, but there are some areas that I've gone that it's, or there's comments that are made that I was just like, either you're that naive or there's something there. You know what I mean? Like when I was in Oregon, I didn't expect to find like comments like that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, man, I thought you guys are progressive. You're freaking. There's signs in your lawn saying like
everyone's accepted.
Yeah, everyone's accepted. But anyways, and that's one of the I don't know. Like, I mean, we're kind of hinting at the racism, but every country has it. You know, like, I don't know, you can go to any tribe or any, there's always some form of like racism or discrimination. I think we just kind of highlight it more in America. I mean, obviously because of our past or recent past. But one of the things I found is, like, during 2021 when I was going to Oregon, there was all this like turmoil and stuff going, like if you were to watch the news, it was like shit.
I hate watching the news.
Yeah, like, or just social media or anything in general. Like there was this narrative that was like everything was dangerous, stuff's on fire, people were rioting, and then I drove to Oregon and it was like just the whole way there.
Yeah.
I was expecting to see, at least in some of the cities, like some type of discourse or like being treated in some type of negative way, but no, it was chill.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because everybody had been talking about all the stuff going on in Oregon.
Yeah, on social media and just in general, like especially Oregon, because was it Portland? Like, I mean, granted, I didn't go that far north, but But even when I spoke to people in Portland, they were like, "Yeah, it's just isolated to this area.
Exactly.
It's not like everywhere."
But that's all they're showing on the news.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so funny. That happened. That like one of the like when I was in New Mexico. I just like ran across some people on a trail, and me and the person I was with, they were like, "Oh, are you guys from around here?" And he was, and then I wasn't, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm from Seattle." They're like, "Whoa, isn't it like dangerous up there?" I'm like, "No, like,
Yeah.
definitely don't go down like." I mean, it's, downtown Seattle's like kind of like any other city. You gotta like watch out. Like I don't know, it's just I don't know, but if you're like that's like one little area, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think I guess that's my point is that traveling is, though it can be dangerous, most of the time it's more eye-opening and like teaches you something about yourself and about the world that you can't learn from a device.
Totally.
Or a conversation. Is something you have to personally experience for yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so, and those fears and stuff. Like, what if those people like? I mean, I don't know if they're gonna take my word from it that like you should go visit, but like, if those people are being governed by that, whatever they saw that's like making this place so scary, like they're probably never gonna go there.
Mm-hmm.
And like if we just keep listening to these messages that are like so scary, or it's dangerous to road trip, and it's like I don't know, dangerous to go international, and like if we keep listening to those instead of actually just doing it and like do it safely, do it with awareness. Like right. I think when I was traveling, and especially as a solo female, like I always got my head on a swivel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna be dumb. I did get like there was one time when I got too drunk, and I never did that again. Yeah. And like, cause I wanted to be in control of my situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my senses. And so yeah, but like as long as you do it like intelligently, like you can learn so much, and there's so much more to gain than like the risks.
What's one of the most profound things that you found out about yourself, like during your travels?
That I can do it. I think that's like, I think flexing that muscle of like, I'm gonna try this new thing has just been, I'm really proud of that. Like, I think I'm pretty good at that. And I just keep getting, like, the more you try it, the better you get at it. So I think like that's the thing. It's like, yeah, buying the airline ticket, taking the trip, and not like canceling, and then trying new things. Like I did paragliding, like yeah, trying those new things. Oh yeah, and that was there's always the risk that it's gonna suck, or like well, and especially with paragliding, you could die, but it's okay. But I don't know. There's always the risk that you're gonna look dumb, or like that it's not gonna. It might turn out not great, but more often than not, it's a great new experience, or I don't know, like a stepping stone to somewhere else. Like I think, where did I go? When I was traveling, like in Asia, it was sort of like by the seat of my pants, like making different decisions, and it was like I like checked out this town like in Laos, and I didn't like the hostel there, and I just took off the next day. And I think that's also enabled within the van too. If I don't like where I'm at, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
And so yeah, just changing course based on trying different things.
Do you think that it's like being alone has kind of made you pay attention more to something as intuition?
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
Like give that more attention to kind of keep you safe? Yeah,
I think I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I really learned that day. Like it was that time when I got too drunk. I like did, and I definitely learned that like I need to be able to tap into that intuition, and like if I need all my senses.
Yeah, and your intuition is kind of hindered when you're under the influence of most things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I definitely like being able to hear myself, and so in general situations where I am like just alone, like I feel like I'm decent at listening to it. The more like like relational noise that comes in. Like if I've got friends or like peer pressure, sometimes that can get a little bit clouded. And then definitely like in relationship, I sometimes can lose that too because I feel like my attachment starts to take over versus like away from my authentic, like what do I really want right now?
Yeah.
And so, but generally alone, I feel like I'm pretty strong.
Yeah. So you kind of practice one thing that most people fear is being like alone.
Yeah, true.
Cause ever watched that show Alone?
The one they're out in the woods.
Yeah, where they're like 100 miles in the Arctic Circle.
And like cook like squirrels or something.
Yeah, whatever they can pretty much to eat. But the one thing that most people, like they'll go in with all these skills and for bushcraft skills and starting fires and archery and all that stuff, but the one thing that most people bail out for, and I guess I kind of am judging, but I'm not trying to judge, but is dealing with being alone for, like, isolated for that long.
Is that usually what they kind of quit?
Yeah, because they got to be out there at least 100 days, I think.
Dang, 100 days is
Yeah, and they're by themselves. All they have is their camera. I mean, they have a lifeline they could call, but once they call, like for medical or whatever, then they can get obviously for their safety, they get I don't want to say kicked off the show, but they're out of the show or whatever.
Yeah.
Like if they break their leg or something, then they'll come in. But other than that, like most people, like they'll build like an awesome shelter, and they could potentially live there for like years, but based off of what they have. But it's being alone, missing their families, or just being missing like whatever ties that they have.
Interaction, yeah, that's difficult. You know, I do give myself credit that I've been like, I am able to be physically alone, but I definitely have my phone, and I'm like able to tap into my social media and then also call friends, and then the way that I bounce around, like I have like my Texas base, and now I've got an Arizona base, and I've got Washington, and like, so I definitely have my communities and that connection to them. So that would be really hard to just be completely isolated. And maybe the closest thing I came was my like 10-day silent retreat for Vipassana, and that was so challenging. And I was surrounded by the other like participants, but you weren't supposed to make eye contact. You really were supposed to be trying to isolate into your head. Like you're not supposed to write down a journal entry. It was like really this like 10-day practice of like no. You were really trying to go inside, and that was so difficult. So yeah, I can only imagine like being in the woods, literally isolated.
What did you learn from that retreat?
How busy my mind was when I was really trying to like focus on my breath. Like you were really practicing on like centering your breath and sensations like on like your triangle in the middle of your face. And so yeah, I learned how busy my mind was, and then also that I had that ability to bring it back each time, even though that was such a practice. Like that was a muscle in itself to flex. Like maybe I wasn't any good at it, and even after 10 days, I'm still a beginner. Like, but that I have that agency to like make that choice.
Was there anything unexpected that you was like, whoa, shit, I didn't expect this?
Yeah, I didn't really know what that like feeling that you're supposed to feel is, and maybe and the like there's like an instructor that kind of explains what each day is gonna be like, and at one point he did explain like once you get that feeling where you hit that kind of frequency of like you're really in the zone, it'll feel a certain way, and it felt to me like almost like a ripply, shimmery, like if you're looking at like a lake type of a thing for me, like through my body, like a weird, like a sensation like that. But then the rest that happened on like I think day 5, and the rest of the days I was like chasing that, and he even mentioned that like if you chase that, you're not gonna get it, because then it's like you have that attachment to that again.
Yeah.
You're not just in the zone. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and it's just a different form. It's like there's a book called Rise of Superman. I don't know. I think I told you about it before.
Yeah.
It's like this idea of flow, the flow state, and some people, especially in extreme sports, they chase that flow. They try to find that window, and by chasing it, they never find it because it gets more and more rare. But it's at the very end, we're chasing something. We're chasing like, and not just being present and appreciating what it is. And that's the. I feel that's the trick to it all, is just to be present and appreciate what you're going through now. Because if you're always like looking forward or looking back, then it's just time is just passing.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. I know that one of the hardest concepts I had to accept is, and I'm still accepting it, is, especially when I retired, I went from not really having my own time to having essentially kind of all the time in the world, so to speak.
Yeah.
But with that came, I was like, I thought freedom was being able to do whatever I want and not having no schedule. And I like to operate in that because it's, I guess, convenient. But I heard I forgot his name. He's a Buddhist monk, but he was talking about like that's like one of the traps, is because like discipline is the only way to freedom, to true freedom, because you are actually doing what you want with your time throughout the day. And it's like, but if you do not, then you become like trapped in the idea of like, I can do whatever I want, but then you don't do anything. And it's just this, it's actually the opposite. Maybe even discipline. At the end of the day, I think it just goes back to the balance of the two.
Yeah. Like being deliberate, and then being deliberate about finding those rest moments. Because maybe I'm thinking of like, you can do whatever you want, so maybe you're just laying around all day, but that's not going to serve you well too. Yeah.
Because then that just builds anxiety.
Yeah.
Going back to anxiety when we started. Because it's like, shit, I didn't get to work out, I didn't get to do this, I didn't go to do my project, or I didn't get to do this, so all that stuff starts building. And one of the things I think most people deal with is, what's it called? When you put stuff off.
Oh, procrastination.
Procrastination. Yeah. And then that builds its own stress. But so what do you like? I was trying to like tie this into like different forces, in the sense of, have you ever thought of love as a pulling force, like a force of nature?
Yeah.
How so?
Like that it's this. I think love is. I know I've heard, or I think it was on what's that one movie? But like it's its own dimension or something.
Interstellar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of going with it.
Because I think. I mean, like when you're like talk about being in love with somebody, like there is like a connection there, but I think that there's maybe a different degree of that between everything and everyone, and so maybe that, and it's this thing that maybe pulls you more towards certain people, or like makes you resonate better with certain people or not, and so, and then if you, I think naturally you're gonna feel that pull, which might draw you to like certain types of activities, or like, I don't know. Yeah, I think it is a pull.
I think definitely love is on a spectrum, and I think people get wrapped around the axle of romantic love, which is probably marketing and a bunch of other movies and stuff.
Society, like we need to find love.
Yeah, because I mean, because love could be like, I don't know. Like they say, like tough love, where you're pushing a kid out of the house because you want them to kind of like, push them out of the bird's nest, like, fly on your own, make your mistakes, and because that's the only way you're going to truly grow. You don't want to let them go.
Yeah.
But it's like, I love you so much, I have to do this, or like, so there's like different levels of love, and again, people get wrapped around the axle of it. But I do feel like It is, and that's what that movie Interstellar, where I forgot what her name is, Anne or something. Anne Hathaway, but I forgot her. Rand, was that her name? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Either way, like she's talking about this force of nature, like, and it's one of those movies. I love Christopher Nolan movies because it makes you think about these concepts that I normally wouldn't think about, or maybe not in the shorter time. But when they're talking about gravity and like that pull, because love has its own like pull.
Oh yeah.
And push. You know what I mean? Like I was just talking about trying to push loved one, out of the nest, so to speak. That's a push, and then a pull, like I want to bring you closer, or a person closer, because I love you. And there's just different variations of it. I do, like, and it is crazy. Like no matter how far a person is, you can still feel that pull in either direction.
That's so true.
And you ever thought about like maybe somebody that you cared about or loved, and then they called you?
Yeah. I feel that. I heard that that's like stronger on full moons or something too.
It could be.
Yeah.
I mean, because there are these things.
The gravity thing.
Yeah, there are these things that are connected, and I've talked about this before, and I am not a physicist, and I'm probably even gonna jack this up, but quantum entanglement, how everything's connected, and like because we can't see it, it doesn't mean that like it's not connected on some level through molecules or atoms or anything like that. There's like, that's why people are trying to search like dark matter and like outer space, like trying to capture everything that can be seen in the darkness, and that's like the dark matter and everything that kind of brings everything together. So with that, it's energy being pushed and pulled. And I think we've talked about this before. I even showed you a video about water molecules and how they're affected and vice versa.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know, you're going in a room when someone's negative and you leave with that same like you're like,
yeah, because because even if like you don't like even interact with somebody, you're taking on that whatever they're projecting. And that's how you kind of become like an average of like the people or things that you surround yourself with, and the activities that you do. And so that water molecule thing was really wild to like literally see it, how it forms.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, sound and sand cymatics. It's like being able to like shift depending on the frequency of sand, or like into these geometric patterns. And like depending on the frequency, they could either be like chaotic, or there can be these beautiful geometric patterns. You take that with water and freezing it. We talked about this before, but yeah, there's something definitely that is tying everything together that we do not, I think we're beginning to understand. And I think for some level that, for me personally, I feel that a lot of people feels like, because we understand some of these, we can see like the notes in the orchestra kind of being played, that we feel like there is nothing bigger than us, whatever that is. But just because we can understand the notes doesn't mean that we understand what's being created, like what's creating those notes, or put those notes in there. There's a book I'm reading right now. It's called Darwin's Doubt by Stephen Meyer, and he kind of talks about that, and like that there's a scientifically has been proven that there is a architect, if you will, or a creator, if you will, or like an intelligence that, based off the DNA profile, and I'm probably gonna jack this up, that DNA cannot, like, they still haven't figured out to build a cell, like a basic cell, which like starts with like DNA, but a lot of these animals that we've thought we evolved from, let's say an alligator, or a shark, or an amoeba, or whatever that evolved into us, that genetically that people cannot create a evolve one DNA strand into, like, I don't know, like eventually we'd evolve into, I don't know, some type of hybrid of human being or something.
Yeah.
Because you have to start with a brand new DNA, a new DNA strand, if you will. It has to be created on its own.
Okay.
It can't be like, hey, this is already here, we're going to build on top of this, because over time it would just degrade. And the more time, going back to Darwin's doubt, the argument there was by, I think he was Swedish or something, that was arguing against Darwin and his theory of evolution. At the time when it first came out, he was talking about like how more time doesn't, like, well, he was talking about like the very basic fundamental examples he was using were not the same, like the same insect or the same. It was like a trilobite and a something, but it looked like a beetle, and he was trying to compare it to another one, but they weren't the same one. So there was like the very basic level, like it was false. And then on top of that, it was just like the more time you give something, it doesn't make it, like, time is not doesn't help the case of evolution. It actually degrades it because it just falls apart after a while. But I'm still in the beginning of it, so I shouldn't even brought it up.
That's okay.
But either way, it's pretty fascinating to me to kind of understand the bigger picture.
Yeah. So then each of, like, I don't actually know how, like, the DNA, like, little traits, like, switched over. I know about dominant and...
You're talking about, like, with...
Like, how, in terms of evolution, but what you're saying is maybe there's a theory that, like, there were these DNA strands in existence that we shifted around to become human, or...
No, what it's saying is that each, like, the human DNA strand is its own strand. Yeah. Like, it didn't come from something else. It came from an original design for, like, humans, or a different version of human.
And it was packaged up in those little trilobites waiting to be...
Well, that's what Darwin was saying, like, just to, like, he used all these, I think it was Galapagos Islands. He used these insects because I think the thought was that this place hasn't been touched in centuries or what have you, so I'm able to kind of take these fossils and of these insects and be able to see how it's progressed from this to this, and be able to break that apart. So he used these as a case study on this island, like all these different variations of animals. But what was found was that over time to now, and Stephen Meyer talks about, is that, I mean, it's kind of getting to the basic, like, case studies that you're talking about, and not trying to, but it's disproving that based off of scientists at that time. Like Agassiz, Agazzi, I think. Was, yeah, Agassiz, maybe? Yeah.
Well, that's how they pronounce it in Arizona. There's a mountain named that.
Agassiz? What? You're probably... I just can't read it, apparently. But yeah, so it talks about that from, like, that standpoint, and then later on it gets into the I guess where we've gotten with genetics and understanding, like, the genome, and like how it was created and how it's created now. And I've been following other scientists that have been kind of experts in their career field and put out numerous papers about it, and they're just kind of meeting this wall of different ideologies, and it's not just for religion, but just in general, like atheism or whatever, and not willing to challenge your own beliefs to try to find the truth to something. It's just like, I guess what most people in general, their blind spots that they have is not willing to accept new evidence because it's going to change your worldview on something. And me, I'm trying to find, like, I understand a lot of things to a certain point, but at the same time, if somebody brings new information to me, I'll try to apply it to it, and if it doesn't connect, it doesn't connect for me. But I'm not gonna just throw it away. I'm just gonna kind of store it because it might come into play later and might be able to connect with something else.
Yeah.
But
that's a good way to do it.
But so when you were in Giza,
in Egypt.
Egypt.
Yeah.
Did you go to Giza?
Yeah.
Egypt.
Like that's like the town where the pyramids are. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you feel any type of anything, or did it make sense to you that it was a tomb?
I went inside one of the smaller ones. It was just it was a weird experience to go inside it. Like
Weird how?
just that you like were going down this like slope, and then the air got like stuffier, which makes sense. Like there's no like exit, or maybe there are the vents and stuff. Because of that stuffiness, I think I've got out, but maybe that's a product of like the energy in there. It's like I didn't want to stay around long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a place where you didn't want to stay there too long.
Yeah, I guess there was that.
Interesting.
I just was like, okay, cool, took a look, and I got out. Like
what did they like when you did the tour? What were they saying about it?
That like they explained like the age of them, and then like there was a map about like the one that I went into, of like what they kept at the bottom of it, or like who they kept in the bottom of it, and then that there were these other passageways, but you didn't have access to them. Yeah.
So that I think it's called maybe it was called Ancient Apocalypse. That's why I didn't catch it.
Okay.
Or couldn't find it, but that's one of the things he talks about. It. I want to say that in the pyramids that there was never any sarcophaguses found.
Oh, like the atmosphere.
Yeah, and if you look at the way it was designed, it doesn't make sense, like the way it was designed, because there's like a long shaft at the top, and then there's like a chamber at the bottom, and what they feel is like at one point in time, what they don't feel, but like the Nile used to go up to the pyramids, and they feel that there's, I don't want to say evidence, but there's theories that it was used for the water to run through to create this resonance to provide power for Giza at the time, because there was this, I forget what type of light bulbs they were called, but they didn't know how they turned them on. You know what I'm talking about? They show any light bulbs. There's like these ancient light bulbs.
Yeah.
So they feel like the frequency would turn these on, like almost kind of like Tesla with the World's Fair, where he was able to use like pretty much Wi-Fi at the time, but in power to light up the World's Fair.
Yeah.
With at the time, was it the 1930s or 40s? Yeah, it's like technology we could use now, but we don't use.
Yeah. Well, and like, but then why isn't there any record of it? And
of what?
Of that, the way that it was, the resonance or whatever. Like,
I believe there is, and like that's one of the things that Graham Hancock is trying to dispute, and he's going against a community of archaeologists that, like, they believe it to be this way, and because that's what the majority opinion was, and they are not willing to accept any new evidence. I think in that the documentary I was telling you about, he tries to challenge like the scientist in Egypt, the main guy, I forgot his name, and he's not willing to challenge him on like these new ideas or thoughts or theories or what have you.
Yeah. Even
though there's like evidence of it. You go back to the Eye of Africa, where the striations were supposedly where Atlantis was, and like there's you look at it from satellite imagery, there's like striations, which just means there's like a lot of water like over the sand, like at one point in time. Either way, maybe it's something we could talk about in another episode.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I wish I watched the ancient.
I think it's Ancient Apocalypse. Yeah.
That rings a bell. Like I feel like I saw that as one of the ancient options.
Yeah, he got a lot of pushback too from papers and stuff calling him. I mean, it seems like the thing nowadays. People write stuff in the paper or like in news articles, and they just use this blanket statement. like such as like a bigot or conspiracy theorists or what have you, and they're automatically, it's a discredit. You see it with everyone. They just did it with Russell Brand too. They find, discredit them, and then like there's just smear campaign, and they just continually do it
because people are presenting new ideas.
Yeah. But I don't know. I thought that's what science is.
Yeah, new ideas, new evidence. It should just be based on like findings and like discovery, but people get so attached to what they think their truth is that they don't want to ever get challenged on it.
Yeah, because it becomes an ideology, it becomes a part of their identity, and they're not willing to change that. But either way, I think we'll probably, unless you got something else you want to bring up.
No, or what time we got?
I think it's about 10 something.
Yeah. Good call.
What time is it?
I think it's 10:15.
10:15?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, well, thank you, Teresa, for being here with your presence. Yeah, I appreciate you talking and sharing some of the stuff you have. Anything you got for anyone?
Yeah, just thanks for having me here. It's been cool to like see the development of your new space, and then I don't know, we'll just keep biking.
Yeah.
Keep challenging.
Keep riding.
Yeah.
Find those new trails.
Keep growing and keep pushing boundaries. I know that was like the topic of the last one. I'm excited to race, maybe like ease myself back into racing.
There you go.
So,
yeah, don't try not to lose sight of the fun of racing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, not for nothing, but racing is a way to progress and become better. But unless you're doing it on a bigger stage, like it's good to be competitive, but not so much competitive where it's not fun anymore.
Exactly.
I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, I figured that out like this summer. I just feel like I was doing things, or like I felt this pressure to like try and do stuff that I wasn't ready for, and then it took the fun out of it. It just made it really stressful, and and so it kind of pulled back. So I'm excited.
I feel like the more fun you're having riding, the faster you are.
Yeah, that's true. You get that flow. You find the flow because you're in the moment and you're not thinking about whatever other pressures there are about it. Yeah. True.
Nice.
Let's keep that up.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully you guys like the new space. If not, that's the way it's gonna be. There'll probably be some other stuff changing around here, but for the most part, I gotta fix the audio and stuff. But thank you for your time. Please consider subscribing on YouTube. It's also on Spotify, Pandora, Deezer, and a bunch of other streaming platforms. I'm gonna try to keep these coming out at least one every 2 weeks. Again, I do all the editing and everything, so it takes me a while to get everything out, amongst a bunch of other stuff I do. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and take care. All right.
I hope it worked.